This case takes place in Mendota, California back in 2009, and I have hardly seen this case talked about. I've seen one TikToker talk about it really, and I really had a hard time finding information online on this case. There is a bunch of articles after the fact, but when I went digging in web sleuths, all of the articles I could find on there were pretty much erased from the internet. None of the pages were found. It was just, I don't know, it's odd. But this case is a very tragic one. I think it really brings up the conversation of the cycle of abuse. So I also think this case is a really good discussion piece, but it is also very sad and tragic nonetheless. So with that, let's get into the SA and murder of 4-year-old Alex Mercado. Alex Mercado was a happy and healthy 4-year-old living in Mendota, California with his family. He was described as a cute little dimpled, brown-eyed ball of energy. He loved playing with cars and riding his bike and going swimming. And like most little kids at that time, Alex loved SpongeBob and Spider-Man, and he also loved listening to Soulja Boy. At the time of his disappearance, he was also one of 6 children, and his mother, Mindy, was also 7 months pregnant. So Alex was living in a pretty full house. And during the afternoon of October 30th of 2009, Alex was last seen by his sibling when he was playing outside, and then he's seen him walking away from the home. At one point or another, one of the family members realized that Alex was missing, and they ended up searching the entire neighborhood, but Alex wasn't found. Police would eventually be called, an Amber Alert would be put out, and police and law enforcement, the family, neighbors, they all started searching for Alex through the night. The following day, police would end up starting to go door to door searching in neighbors' homes and asking if they had seen anything. It would be on that following day of October 31st when police would be allowed inside of the home of Elsa Castro. Now, Elsa was a neighbor, and she apparently used to babysit Alex and some of his siblings. Now, I've seen 2 different stories play out on how everything occurred when police were searching this home. In the first account, I seen officers were outside and then everything happened. In the second version of events, I seen that an officer was allowed inside. He walked into the apartment and he was starting to search the kitchen. And this is when the officer observed Elsa go over and open up the family's dryer. Either way, in both accounts, multiple people and officers would end up hearing Elsa scream once she opened up that dryer. And she ended up screaming because she ended up discovering little 4-year-old Alex Mercado inside of the family home's dryer. Police, of course, were informed of this discovery, and they would start questioning the family members, including 14-year-old Raul Castro, who was Elsa's son. And according to the affidavit, at first, Raul ended up denying knowing anything happened. But when police told him that they ended up finding Alex inside of his dryer, he would end up suggesting that someone broke into their home and put Alex inside of their dryer. But eventually, 14-year-old Raul would end up confessing to killing Alex. Now, what I'm about to describe to you is very horrific, and it involves, obviously, a child dying. So if you don't want to hear something like that, I would skip ahead or exit this video. Raul would later recount that on the afternoon of October 30th, he had saw Alex playing outside, and he ended up luring Alex into his home. And I'm sure little Alex would feel comfortable going with Raul. Maybe he wanted someone to play with, and he's seen Raul. He would have known Raul if Raul's mother had babysat him in the past. So maybe he was playing outside by himself. He's seen the older boy wanted to play with them, and he trusted him. And, you know, little kids look up to older kids. And so he ended up going with Raul to his home. But once inside, little Alex would not be leaving. Raul would end up essaying Alex. I also seen the mention of sodomy multiple times. And after Raul had assaulted Alex, he claims that Alex had fallen and hit his head. And when this happened, Alex started crying, and he said that he was going to go tell his mommy. When Alex ended up saying that he was going to tell on Raul, Raul ended up panicking and decided that he needed to kill Alex so that he didn't get in trouble. So Raul ended up filling a bathtub with water. He placed 4-year-old Alex inside of the bathtub, and then he ended up laying on top of Alex to ensure that he would drown. When Raul thought Alex was dead, he ended up checking Alex's pulse as well as shaking his shoulders, but Alex was indeed dead. From there, Raul ended up picking up Alex, putting him over his shoulders, and carrying him to the laundry room, where he then placed the body of 4-year-old Alex Mercado inside of it along with some clothing to attempt to hide the body. Raul would ended up saying that he had hoped that everything would just go away. And I think that really shows how young Raul really was. In thinking that hiding a body in a clothing dryer was a feasible place to hide a body. And just seeing the photos of Raul in court also, I think, depicts how young he was, how young 14 really is. It also makes you wonder how a 14-year-old would ever even think of essaying a little toddler. a child. Why would that cross a 14-year-old's mind? And I think looking into Raul's past makes it make a lot more sense in my opinion. Raul's grandmother would end up being quoted saying, "He was a nice kid, he stayed in my house a long time." Court records, however, would show that Raul's mother, Elsa, filed for divorce of Raul's father in 1996. And this divorce came after Raul's father, Jose Castro, essayed a boy in Mendota. Jose ended up being convicted and he spent only 3 years in jail for the essay of a child. So that means that Raul's father was a pedophile. And that makes me wonder if Jose ended up abusing his own child as well, if he was abusing other children. And in my opinion, it does make sense because we do see this common history of abusers abusing their children and then those children turning out to be abusers and this constant cycle. And in my opinion, that's what this case truly is. It's a cycle of abuse. The fact that Raul committed a similar crime as his father, it really solidifies it for me. Now, his father, as far as I know, hasn't murdered any children, but I do see the thought process of a 14-year-old boy going through what, ended up actually happening. He commits the abuse because he's been taught this abuse. He's been seeing this abuse his entire life. He doesn't think it's wrong because he's so used to being abused himself. So he decides he's going to abuse someone else, someone much smaller and younger than him that can't fight back, just as he couldn't fight back when the adults in his life were abusing him. So he picks Alex. He ends up committing the offense. And when Alex says he's going to tell on him, he freaks out and he reacts impulsively and he ends up murdering Alex. Now, that doesn't make this crime any less horrible and terrible because none of that should have happened to begin with. But it's the fact that it makes sense. Locals would also end up coming out saying that Raul was a strange kid. One man that owned a video store saying that the teenager had unusual habits, such as wearing a parka in the summertime when he would come into his store with his mother. And that makes people question if he was wearing this parka because he was hiding maybe bruises or signs that he was being abused or self-harming by wearing something like long-sleeved like that and heavy so people couldn't see his body. Now, none of that has been proven. That's just a theory I see online, but I think it could be plausible. There was also a classmate that was quoted saying, "I used to sit next to Raul in class, and he was that kind of kid that would creep me out. He was always looking at you, just staring at you." 14-year-old Raul Castro would eventually be arrested and charged with first-degree murder as an adult in the murder of Alex Mercado. His defense would claim that Raul was mentally ill and that he did not mean to kill Alex, which I can see him being mentally ill after suffering all of that abuse, and clearly there was something fucked up in his head to even do any of these acts. But I don't think he didn't mean to kill Alex. He did purposely kill him because he didn't want to get caught. So there was a thought process behind that. It wasn't an accident. It wasn't like he accidentally knocked into Alex and Alex fell down the stairs and hit his head and died. He purposefully drowned him with an intent to kill him, to stop him from telling. There's intent there. However, doctors would testify that Raul had a history of depression, unaliving behavior, hallucinations, bipolar disorder, and anxiety. And that all reminds me of what Aiden Fuchi's defense lawyer is trying to claim at the moment as well. And if Raul was in fact raised by a pedophile and possibly essayed by his own father and other adults in his life, I'm honestly not surprised that this child was in this mental state. And I say other adults in his life because it was mentioned that Raul had suffered physical abuse as a toddler by his mother's boyfriend. It's disgusting. It doesn't make what he did any less worse, but it is disgusting that Raul had to go through this as well. This child was surrounded by abuse and essaying behavior his entire life, it seems like. Now, not everyone that is abused turns into an abuser or a murderer. I'm not saying that. I know that doesn't happen. There are so many people who are unfortunately abused out there, and they don't turn out like this. They don't go and do it to other people. They realize, like, what happened to me was so terrible, I would never want that to happen to anyone else. But then it also happens the exact opposite way, where that's the only behavior they ever know and learn. And so they think it's normal to do it to other people. And I also don't know why 14 seems to be the magic number. Around the age of 13, 14, this is when all these children are committing these murders. And this whole playlist of, child killers that I've created, it all seems to be around that age. If you have any information on why you think that would be, let's chat about it below, because I'm really curious. Now, despite all of Raul's past, he would eventually be convicted of first-degree murder. He'd also be convicted of lewd conduct and sodomy. He was then eventually convicted to 33 years to life. Minnie Mercado, who was Alex's mother, would be quoted in court saying, "I came here to find justice and see that justice would be served in Alex's name. But I see that there's no justice because all I really would have wanted was to have him here with us." This case got even sadder when I learned that after Alex's murder, his father went into a deep depression and he ended up missing his deportation hearing. And when he missed this hearing, he ended up being put into the custody of Immigration and Customs Enforcement. I didn't see anything about him ever getting out or being deported, so I'm not really sure what happened in that case, but I think it's just really sad all around that this happened to little Alex. His family was hurting so much, and then his father having to go through all of that. It's just all terrible. But yeah, that is the case of Alex Mercado and his 14-year-old murderer, Raul Castro. How do you all feel about this case? Do you agree with me that I think there are a lot of underlying factors that led Raul to do this? Do you think that Raul should have been let off a little easier because of his past and what led him to commit this murder? Or do you think he should have been let off more leniently because of his age? I want to say I don't think he could be reformed. I definitely think he should stay in prison. I don't believe in letting pedophiles out. Clearly, his father only went to jail for 3 years, and then he was let out. I think he should have been just kept in prison forever. So let's have a big chat about this down below. Let me know your opinions on this case, and I will hopefully see you in the next video. If you're not subscribed, please hit that subscribe button so that you can be notified when I do post. I've been posting weekly. And yeah, stay safe out there, and I will see you in the next case. Bye.